Peace. This is King Noble Black Supremacy. With this particular video, I want to address Dr. Umar Johnson and Irritated Genie and those of like minds or of a similar persuasion of thought as them. And I want to title this video The Black Sexual Nonconformist Movement versus the Homosexual Agenda. And I want to go in on that. For one, I agree there is a homosexual agenda. Any minority group or social group or political group has a agenda. So you cannot argue that the homosexuals have an agenda. Any group that wants to spread and grow and establish political power and ground itself in this country would have to have an agenda. So there is a homosexual agenda. Is it as conspiratorial as people make it appear? Is it a conspiracy or some secret? Absolutely not, from my understanding. But is it clear that there is a homosexual agenda? Absolutely, unarguably. But what's the difference between the homosexual agenda, the agenda of the homosexuals, and the black sexual nonconformist movement that is happening, that's actually getting spliced together, getting thrown together? They're not the same. But you're discrediting one out of your hatred for the other. See, the black sexual nonconformist movement has absolutely nothing to do with white people. It has nothing to do with white homosexuals. They're not the leaders of it. It has nothing to do with them. Their narrative is not intertwined or connected to it. It's something different. Are there some black people that are swirling with white people in their homosexual, bisexual, or heterosexual relationships out of nonconformity? Absolutely. But they're not the same. It's a different narrative. It's a whole different come from. It's a whole different energy. And that's what I want to talk about here. For over the last 400 years, our oppressor, white people, have told us who, what, where, when, how, and why to have sex in this society. They have told us that. They have gave up the rules and the regulations through culture, through religion, through spirituality, through customs, through law enforcement, politics. They have imposed an idea of sex on us, of what type of sex that we should have. And not only have they done that, they maintain and keep themselves in a position to constantly redefine what sex is for us, that fits whatever their purpose is at whatever point that they are and what they're doing or where they're going with things. So they stay as the definers. They stay as the enforcers. They stay as the imposers to define society, to define culture. This is what they do. They did it with heterosexuality, with Christian Protestant values, family values, conservative ideas. They push heterosexuality on us, their heterosexual views. Even if people say that we were heterosexuals in Africa, they can't say that we had one woman in Africa, because we practiced polygamy. We had multiple wives. But polygamy is illegal in the United States on the books. While many people practice it, don't call it that, and these marriages are not respected or honored by society because someone else defines your sexuality that you must conform to if you want to be respected by society, in business, in politics, in certain affairs. Then it makes sense for you to only have one wife. Conform to one wife. Conform to the idea of monogamy. Yeah, you can have side bitches. You can have multiple women that you deal with. But you can only have one wife on the books. So we must conform to that. That's a Christian conservative idea. coming out of the New Testament, saying become evenly yoked, which implies that only two people are coming together, a man and a woman. So we had to conform to that idea. And while we may not have been definitely practicing homosexuality in Africa, the relationships between men and our rituals and our traditions and our initiations and the way we interface with one another was different than we have interfaced with under white supremacy, under their corporate policies, under their institutions, under their oppression. We're interfacing differently than we would have in Africa. We have been forced to sexually conform to what they consider norms, how they define the relationships between man and man, man and woman, man and child. They have defined these relationships and made us conform into what these relationships should be and how they should be sexually. They gave us that definition. We got it from our oppressors. We accepted it. We accepted their Christian conservative ideas and value systems and their definition of family and their definition of sexuality and how the opposite sex or same sex should interface among one another. We accepted it. Many of us not only accepted it, but propagated it, proselytized it, pushed these ideas, and some, as we can go so far, to enforce them. But not only did we do that, did they force us to take these ideas, they also force us to accept that they're the only ones that control the narrative. They're the only ones that can change and impact society and impact the value of these relationships, with how it fits into their corporations and their capitalism and how it fits into them staying on top and maintaining white supremacy. So the best working definition of what right is and what a good relationship is and how we should interface is one that benefits white supremacy, capitalism, and the corporations. So we've been forced to conform to them and their ideas constantly. The same people that gave us heterosexual, that many have heterosexuality, kind of heterosexual, that many women found oppressive, that made the man the head of his household and silenced the voice of the woman and put her in a certain position beneath man based on these conservative ideas that we call a family, their relationship model that they gave to us. They gave that to us. The same ones that gave us that are now giving us homosexuality now. From one extreme to another, because that's what they can do. They can do that. They can go from one extreme to another. Now they're giving us this homosexuality. They're forcing people into homosexuality to accept homosexuality. That's their new culture. They're diverting back to Rome and Greece. So now homosexuality is what is being pushed. It's the new right to accept that, to be open to that. The same entity that gave you heterosexual family concept is now giving you homosexuality. Some people are clinging to his old construct of the heterosexual family, survivalistic, species, religious overtone, Judaistic overtone, and I don't even say Judaism, I just say Catholicism. They gave us that. The same people that gave us that is giving us homosexuality now. The black sexual nonconformists don't want either. We don't want that one. We don't want the old one. We don't want the new one. And we don't want an oppressor to conform to whatever his new idea is going to be or whatever his old idea was. We acknowledge our freedom of self-determination to create. We acknowledge our freedom of self-definition. That even that we may not get back to the old and traditional and ancient ways that we were robbed from. That we still have the same ability to self-determine and self-define ourselves that we did before the white man even came to our face before we even saw the first white man. That the ability to self-define and self-determine is still untouched in us and is the essence of who we are as a people. So we are not going to conform to any of his ideas either. We don't have to. So there's a strong black sexual nonconformist movement that is going on, where people don't feel like they have to be defined as either. You don't have to be defined as a heterosexual. You don't have to be defined as a polygamist under Judaism or Mormonism. You don't have to be defined as gay, straight, bisexual, binary, non-binary, inner, over, transgender, any of that. That we refuse to conform in any way to any of these constructs and these ideas and frameworks that have been pushed by the oppressor and the oppressor society. We refuse to conform. So every black person that does not fit the mold is not a part of an homosexual agenda, but part of a intentional and very purposeful desire to not fit the mold at all, to no longer to allow our sexuality to be defined by our enemy. If he can get you to conform sexually, he can get you to conform psychologically, he can get you to conform spiritually, he can get you to conform financially, he can get you to conform on every level. We refuse to conform to the enemy's way of life, his constructs and his ideas and his reality that he continues to impose on us. And if he's not imposing the same one, he is still maintaining his position as an imposer. The same enemy who you say is effeminizing black men today through hip-hop and Hollywood, you say the Jew, is the same entity that pushed violence and defined the relationships between black men as one that is very hostile, one that is very separatist, one that is very individualistic and dog-eat-dog. That's the same entity that you say effeminized you, is the same entity that over-masculinized you through Hollywood. Same entity. So you can't blame him for both. You can't blame him for one, because he's also the author of the other. The same entity that's giving you this homosexuality and this new gay liberation with the legalization of marijuana that's turning America into the 70s, into the experimental age of American history revisited with drugs and sex with any and everybody, is the same one who gave you your Christian conservative values that you call family. That's really oppressive of the woman and suppressive of the man's desire towards multiplicity, anti-polygamous, anti-African. Now that same entity is now giving you homosexual. He's constantly giving you something. He constantly got a new construct for you to fight or fight against. Well, you got the sexual nonconformist that's saying, look, we ain't conforming to any of it. We're not conforming to your limited construct of heterosexuality and a family structure based on monogamy and based on one that supports capitalism, that supports his economy. And we also not going with your homosexuality either. We want none of them. We don't have to conform to any in either of them at any time. The need to conform is completely unnecessary to the black sexual conformist, nonconformist. You're not telling us no more who, what, when, why, where, and how to have sex. Nor do we have to tell you what, when, why, how, and where, and who we have sex with anymore. We don't have to present that. That's none of your business, and it has to fit into none of your constructs. It doesn't have to fit into any of your constructs whatsoever. Gay, straight, bisexual, heterosexual, Christian, Protestant, Muslim, Islamic, African traditionalists, none of them. We don't conform to any of them at any moment in time. So there's a strong sexual nonconformist movement. Now, every now and then, at some point, this sexual nonconformist person may look gay at one point, whatever. They might look straight at another point. They might look bisexual at another point. They might look a whole bunch of other ways at a whole bunch of other points. But it doesn't matter, because they're not trying to conform to their oppressor's construct based on their sexuality. They're not trying to fit in anymore. They're not trying to be defined by the will of their oppressor, by the reality of their oppressor anymore. They really don't care. They're sexually sovereign, no longer conforming to the oppressor's reality, no longer trying to find definition in a world that's only defined by imposing itself on others in one way or the other. So you have certain people out there that are same gender loving people. They don't call themselves gay, they call themselves same gender loving. Well, we've been taught how to love each other, our own gender, like I said earlier, through Hollywood, through the media, through school, through education, through religion, through a society that is oppressed, that's perpetuating its own oppression. We've been taught how to love each other. And the way we've been taught to love each other has worked more for them and their society than it has worked for us. So when you have people that are same gender loving now, they're redefining how people of the same gender can love each other versus how they can hate each other. Notice it don't say same gender hating, it's the same gender loving, because we're coming from a society where we have been presented as same gender hating, that the black man is more likely to be killed by somebody of his own complexion than anybody else. That he's likely to die by somebody that looks just like him. That's same gender hating. Not even of a different gender, but somebody of the same gender. So you got people who are same gender loving, who are redefining how we can relate to each other as entities and as beings. And there's a new construct that's coming out of that, which I think is progressive, because we need to love ourselves differently. If how we've loved ourselves in the past have got to us to where we're at now as a people, then clearly we need to love ourselves different and find new ways to love ourselves. So you have same gender loving movements where the black women love each other differently and have found new ways to love each other. Black men are finding new ways to love each other and relate to each other in ways that are supportive and nurturing, in ways that facilitate our growth and our development. They're no longer conforming to the old constructs that have not worked for us as a people. So there is a strong black sexual nonconformist movement that is necessary, because you are conforming to your oppressor's reality. None of these ideas and these structures and these boxes and these templates that we bring over here with us, not one of them. All of them were forced on us. And some of us now, like I said, we're wearing them like they're our own. And we're pushing them and we're attached to them, not knowing the same person that's giving you a new one is the one that gave you the old one. When have you sat down and took the time to really, really come up with your own? Do you feel that you are empowered and free enough to come up with your own, or must you conform? This is a fact. So now you have these Europeans that taught you this conservative idea, this anti-gay idea that was brought by racists. The same people that brought this anti-gay mentality were racist. And these racist people were anti-black. These racist people were anti-Jewish. And they were anti-gay all together. They put them all in a bracket together. And now you identify with the social construct that was pushed by people that were anti-black, anti-gay, and anti-Jew. And now you see Jews that may be less attached to Christian conservative values in Hollywood and in the media, and you side with the oppressive system that was created by white supremacists under the auspices of righteousness and Christianity, which is really very racist and very misogynist at its essence. It's anti-woman and it's anti-other races of people, and it's really a white alpha male doctrine. Your whole idea of family structure and the way it's set up is a white alpha male doctrine. And now you're going to use that to fight against the new homosexual movement that is arising. And both of them to me are tools of capitalism. They're tools of the same enemy that has to define stuff and create new definitions and create order out of chaos to perpetuate their own power and to perpetuate their own supremacy and rulership. So I'm only saying this stuff to be careful to throw the black sexual nonconformist movement in with the homosexual agenda. It's two different movements. You should expect black people to not conform to any sexual construct that has been imposed on them for the last 400 years. You should expect them to try to step out of that and to try to come up with new definitions and new ways and new ideas and new ways to relate that's going to ensure their survival on the earth, that is going to allow them to create a new reality that's beneficial for them. These old ones have just been what it's been. It's what we've been forced to do. It's what we have been taught that's right. It has been imposed on us. We have taken it from our master, our slave masters. The new ones is us saying, you know, the hell with all that. We're gonna do something differently. We're gonna try something differently, and we're definitely not gonna conform to any of their realities. So don't force these black people who are defined themselves differently or undefined or have different ways of relating to each other mentally, spiritually, physically, and sexually. Don't force them back into white cultural imperialism. Don't force them to conform to society. Don't force them to conform to the construct that was imposed on them, that they was forced to live under. Don't do that under the auspices of black power. Don't do that. Don't do that, because that's basically what you're doing. You're using black power and black consciousness to force them back under the oppressive ideology that was imposed on them by white supremacy.